Okay, good morning. We are in Taryag. Isser Rechitza B'Yom Kippur. Okay, Aleph. Asur L'Rechotz B'Yom Kippurim. We're all familiar. It's asur to bathe on Yom Kippur. Bein B'Chamin, Bein B'Tzonin. It doesn't matter if you use hot or cold water. Both are asur. V'afilu L'Hoshit Etzba'o B'Mayim asur. Even just to put a single finger in cold water is asur. ואם היו ידיו או רגליו או שאר גופו מלוכלכים בטיט או בצואה, if your hands or feet or any part of your body gets dirty, it could be mud, dirt, excrement, anything, או שנטף דם מחותמו, or you have some blood from your nose, anything that you consider dirt, right? Even sweat, where you touch a covered part of your body, mutar l'rachtzam. So then you're allowed to wash that part of the body that gets dirty.
So in other words, the Mechad is saying, that's for Hana.
That's right. The one finger is if your finger's already clean. And so why you're doing it, it's for pleasure or just... That's the essence.
If they're dirty, you're allowed to wash them.
Shelo asur ela rechitza shel ta'anug. Because the only kind of bathing that's asur or washing is if it gives you pleasure or for the purpose of pleasure. Okay, Mishnah Berurah points out if you have multiple spots on your body and they all need to be cleaned, and it's like a big tircha to start spot cleaning your body, then you can bathe your whole body at once if it's going to be much more practical and much quicker and easier. Okay, but when you're doing this, he points out, make sure anytime you're bathing yourself, you're not doing it. You don't have any kavanah to get hana. Like you tell yourself, I'm doing this because I'm dirty and that's the only reason. Okay? Even to remove sweat, most poskim point out, even to remove sweat, that's also mutter. But they point out that generally speaking, if just because you're somewhat of an istinus, that's not good enough. Unless you really feel uncomfortable, you think that you smell and you can't go to shul, people are not going to want to sit next to you, then you should. You can't be in a place, you can't put yourself in a place where people don't want to sit next to you. Then you should bathe those parts of your body so that you don't have any smell. Or if you just feel like you can't function, then that's okay to get rid of the sweat. Okay, base. Notel adam yadav shachrit. Now, when we wake up in the morning, we always wash our hands, so that we still do when we get up. Umevarech al netilas yadayim, and we do say the bracha of netilas yadayim. V'yizeher shelo yitol ela ad sof kishrei etzba'otav. But you only wash until the end of your knuckles. In other words, all your knuckles closest to the wrist.
Right. So the lower knuckles, not the...
So it depends what you call lower and higher. But the knuckles that are all your knuckles closest to the wrist. That's exactly. V'lo yechavein lahanaat rachitza, rak lahavir haruach ra'a me'al hayadayim. Again, but don't have kavana. You want to enjoy your washing your hands. The purpose is to get rid of the ruach ra'a. Right? It's even a problem to start touching food or your mouth or anything until you wash your hands. So that's considered a necessity. It's part of also getting ready for tefillah and hikon and preparing yourself. So that we say is mutter, right? And we say the bracha netilas yadayim. Gimel. Im heitil mayim v'shifshef biyado. If a person urinates and touches a covered part of his body, o she'asa tzrachav v'kinach, or you relieved yourself, number 2, and you wiped yourself. So then mutar l'rchotz, then you should wash your hands. It's mutar. Tahavele yadav meluchlachot, because now your hands are considered dirty. V'rochetz ad sof kishrei etzba'otav, and you still only wash your fingers up till the end of the knuckles, right closest to the wrist, all the knuckles, unless other parts also got dirty. Any part of your body that gets dirty, but normally we're assuming only your fingers get dirty. Ve'im rotzeh lihit pelel. Then, if you want to daven, afilu lo kinach nami mutar litol ad sof kishrei etzba'otav. Now, if you want to go daven, even if you didn't touch any part of your body, then once you go to the restroom to relieve yourself, then we say you should wash your hands. Anytime you relieve yourself, this goes back to Siman Dalet in the very beginning. Anytime you relieve yourself, so we learn you're supposed to wash your hands for the purpose of making sure that they're clean, because by definition you walk into a bathroom, sometimes your hands touch something without even realizing. So there's that aspect. And because of hikon, anytime you want to say a bracha, such as you're about to say Asher Yatzar, or you're going to daven, any of these times when you use the facilities, and then you want to say a bracha or daven, then you should wash your hands. Even on Yom Kippur, just your fingers to the end of the knuckles. Let's see. All right, so that's based on hikon, which goes on all brachos, including Asher Yatzar and davening. Some point out, the Mishnah Berurah point out, there is a whole discussion in the Achronim, what you should do if you didn't even touch yourself, a covered part of your body, when you relieve yourself in the facilities. So we learned Mikar Din, you're allowed to, but some say it's questionable, so it's better to just touch a covered part of your body at one point, somewhere on your fingers, just so that you get out of that debate in halacha if on Yom Kippur. Normally during the year you would wash your hands, but because it's Yom Kippur, there is a debate in the matter. But once you touch a covered part of your body, then the kuli alma, you should wash your hands, your fingers, right? Okay, so let's go on. Right, and Mishnah points out, once you touch one finger, a covered part of your body, just wash all your fingers. Okay, that's good. Let's go to the Haggah. V'chein kohen ha'oleh laduchan. Now, a kohen who goes up to do Birkas Kohanim, notel yadav ad afal pi shehin tahara. So he washes his whole hand, even though his hands are 100% clean, because it's a din. It's a halacha of washing your hands. To kol rov rachitza she'enu mechavin ba'alatanug muteret. And whenever it's for the sake of a mitzvah, and it's not for the sake of ta'anug, then it's mutter. And they typically wash even until their wrists. Okay, even Yom Kippur. V'lachein afilu ba min haderech v'raglav kehot mutar l'rochtzan. And therefore, if a person comes from just traveling, and his feet are weak, and you need to wash, it's mutter to wash your hands because it cleans them and gives them strength. Okay. Okay, fine. Daled. Mishahu istinus. Ve'ein daito miyushevet alav ad shekanech panav b'mayim. Person wakes up in the morning and he's in istinus, he's fussy, and he's not able to cope with how he feels and to function and walk out of his house if he doesn't wash his face. So for such a person, mutar, haga, v'nagu bazel hachmer. But the minhag is, even for this person, it's to be machmer and not to wash his face at all. V'afilu b'rachitza te'inayim, shehiktzat refuah nagu lahachmer. And the minhag is even for rachitat einayim, for your eyes, which is considered some quasi-refuah, the minhag is that it's aser. Again, it depends how extreme the istinus the person is. It may be mutter, it may be aser. But the general minhag is not to do it at all. However, the general minhag is that once you wash your hands and your fingers for getting up in the morning, right? We learned that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to wash your fingers. So then, when your fingers are still a bit moist from washing, so then we say is mutter to clean your eyes a little bit, especially if you have any of that crust or anything in your eyes, that you're allowed to clean for sure. V'asur lirchotz piv b'yom kippurim k'moshin b'er, and you're not allowed to rinse out your mouth on Yom Kippur, right? Whereas, especially afraid you might swallow something, and so that's us. Okay. Hey. Aholech lebeit midrash. Person goes to the base midrash. O lahak bil pnei aviv, or to see one's father, or rabbo, his rebbe, or misha gadol mimenu bechachma, someone who's greater than in chachma, or tzorchei mitzvah, or for the purposes of a mitzvah. In other words, all these cases are tzarech mitzvah. If a person wants to do any traveling with tzarech mitzvah, so then yachol ha'avor b'mayim ad savaro. You're allowed to walk through water, even if you're going to get your entire body up to your neck covered in water, right? Because the purpose is to do a mitzvah, you're not getting wet l'shem tanug. Bein b'halicha, bein b'chazara, whether you're going or coming back. ובלבד שלא יוציא ידיו מתחת שפת חלוקו להגביר שועי חלוקו על זרועו. But there's one condition. So I think it's the Gemara that writes you're supposed to keep your hands in your pockets. Something along those lines. It's an expression. Keeping your so there's two explanations. What's that referring to? One is mentioned here, and the other one is mentioned back in Hilchos Shabbos. So what's the reason? One is you can't fold your if you have like a long coat. So one explanation is you can't fold your coat and put it over your shoulders. So that's what this means. Why not? Because it's going to look like you're carrying, and carrying is an Isser Daraisa. So that's the problem with that. The other explanation that's given in the Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Shabbos is because you have to do a shinui, so that this way you're not going to come to squeeze out the beged once you get out of the wet crossing the river. Now the water has to basically be pretty still so that it's safe to cross. If you're going to be walking through water up to your neck, it needs to be still water so that it's not dangerous. The imkain, because if it has a current, the imkain af bechol aser mipnei sakana. It's aser to walk through a river if there's a current all year long, because it can sweep you away. It's dangerous. Afilu im eino magim ela ad motnayim, up until about the waist. So, okay. Obviously, it depends how strong the current is. But, okay, this has to be safe. If it's a really strong current, maybe even less. Okay. So we said you're allowed to go backwards and forwards. On the return is also mutter, because we're afraid that if we don't let you go on the return, then you might not want to, it might prevent you from going even initially. Mishnah Berurah points out, but if to visit someone of equal chachma, that you're not allowed to do. It has to be a rebbe or somebody greater. Okay, fine. Let's go on. Vav. Hadishari la'avor begufa b'mayim midvar mitzvah, davka la'avor begufa b'mayim atzman, aval la'avor basfina ktana yesh mi she'oser. So, when did we learn you're allowed to cross the river even for a dvar mitzvah? It's if you're walking, but to start swimming or to go on a boat, so that's aser. That's from the Gzeira of Shabbos. You might come to build and to make yourself a little boat or fix a boat or a raft, and so that Isser still stands on Yom Kippur. So you're allowed to walk, but you're not allowed to take a boat across. Okay. Fine. Zayin. Harav asur la'avor b'mayim kedei lelech etzel tamido. But a Rav, it's not a mitzvah for him to go, and he's not allowed to travel. Only the Talmud, he's not allowed to travel through and get himself wet.
He can't go visit his father?
Yeah, for sure he can visit his father.
Oh, so a Rav can't go for another Rav?
No, a Rav for his Talmud.
A Rav for his Talmud can't go.
Okay.
And what if he's doing Bikkur Cholim?
So for any mitzvah, you're allowed to. Bikkur Cholim, you're allowed to. That's right. Nichum Avelim, if you do Nichum Avelim on Yom Kippur, that's general machloket. You're allowed to, but generally, okay, whatever. That's for Hilchos Avelis. Chet Aholech Lishmor Perosav. Now, this person's afraid he's going to lose some money, so he wants to check out how his business is doing. So he's allowed to mutar la'avor b'mayim b'halicha. He's allowed to go across the water. We let him go, and he's going through the problem here is water and getting yourself wet. So he's not doing it l'shem tanug. Aval lo b'chazara. There's no reason for it to allow him to come back. and there's no heter of, well, if you don't let him come back, he's not going to go. Because everyone's is going to be self-motivated when his money's at stake. But to do a mitzvah, then a person might say, well, I can't get back. וכל מקום דמותר לעבור במים, and anytime we let you go through the water, אפילו היה לו דרך שיכול להקיף ביבשה, מותר לעבור. So the Rama writes that let's say you have a choice. You can go through the water because it's quicker, it's shorter. We don't want you to take extra steps on Shabbos and Yom Kippur than you need to. So you can go right through, that's the shortcut. Or you can walk around, it'll take, I don't know, another 20 minutes, whatever it is, but then you stay dry. So the Rama says better to go straight. There's no exact time, but the idea is, the Rama says it's better to go the quickest way possible, even if you're going to get wet, because we know you're not getting wet for ta'anug. Right? Obviously, it depends on the person, on how hot it is, but generally we're assuming it's not l'shem ta'anug, and therefore that's better. Mishnah Berurah says most achronim though disagree with the Rama, and they say it's better not to get wet on Yom Kippur, and you're better off to walk around a little bit. And I think most people would rather walk around anyway, just so they don't get their clothes all wet. But, okay, let's go on. You see though, it's not a problem. Even though you're going to get your clothes a little bit wet, we don't say it's asr, maybe you're going to come to schita. But on the other flip side, we do say you have to make a heker. You have to do some kind of a shinoi. Keep your hands in your pocket or hold your clothing a little bit in that way, where you're not, okay, your hands are below your garments a little bit. Tet. Asur lehitztanen betit lach imhu tofech al menat lehatpiach. Okay, let's say you're hot. So you can't use your hands or your body touch even mud if it's wet enough that it can make you wet. Okay, if you're going to end up, if it's moisture, that's you're going to be you're allowed to touch anything that's moist, even though it's a little bit wet, as long as it's not wet enough that it's now you're going to have some wetness on your body, on your hands or your body, that now you can make something else wet. So it has to be, right, if you have a bottle of condensation and cold, usually there's dripping drops of water, so that would not be allowed, because then you're going to have drops of water on your body. But if it's just damp, even though you know there's water there, but it's not going to get any water on you, then that's okay. ואסור להצטנן בכלים שיש בהם מים אפילו הם חסרים בין של חרס בין של מתכות אבל אם הם ריקים מותר וכן בפירות ובתינוק. And it's just saying the same concept, that even though there's if it's a little bit wet, then it's a problem, and if it's completely dry, then it's not a problem. That's what we just said. Haga ואסור לשרות מפה מבעוד יום ולעשותם כמין כלים נגובים ולהצטנן בה ביום כיפור לחשינן שמא לא תנגב יפה ויבוא לידי סחיטה. So you can't lechatchila take towels and make them completely wet, and then wait for them on Shabbos to basically dry out, but they're still going to be damp and they're still going to be cold, and it'll cool you down, because we know that often there's going to be a little bit of, it might end up being too wet still, too moist, and there'll be an issue of schita. So we don't do this lechatchila. Okay? Hachole rochetz kedarko. A person who is ill is allowed to bathe himself, alpha pi she'eno mesukan, even if he's not dangerous, but he's a chole, and a chole, we don't want him to get worse, and it's not for the purposes of tanug. It's because the person is sick. So there's no isser for a person who's sick to bathe. Yud. Kala kol shloshim yom muter lirchotz panea. So when a young lady or any lady gets married, for the first 30 days when she gets married, if Yom Kippur falls out 30 days from her wedding, within the 30 days she's mutter to wash her face, right? Because we don't want her to not look good in front of her husband, right? That's the general halacha. That's how it's quoted, so that she still looks good for her husband, especially for the first 30 days. The Mishnah Berurah just points out, he quotes the Chai Adam, that he says in his days, the Chai Adam never saw a new kala. Actually, wash her face. And he says it was probably usher because, and Chayadim saying in his days, it was probably usher because the girl, or inappropriate, because women wouldn't see their husbands. Their husbands would be in shul all day long. So it really depends. Many Achronim don't mention this chumrah of the Chayadim. So it depends on the situation, if they might see each other or not see each other. But Mikar Din, it seems to be 100% mutter. I guess it depends how you interpret the Mishnah Berurah as well, and the Metzias. Yud Aleph. Mi shira'a keri bazman hazeh b'yom ha-kippurim. Now, someone who sees keri, seminal flow, nowadays on Yom Kippur, im lachu mekancho b'malpa v'dayo. If you notice it and it's still wet, you just wipe it off and you're fine, your body's clean. V'im yaveshu o shenit lachlech. Or if it becomes dry, encrusted, or sticky, and you need to clean it, or it's dirty, then rochetz mekomot hamluch lachim bo levad umit palel. Then it's no problem. You are allowed to wash it, the area that you need to, and you daven and you continue on. V'asur lerchotz gufo o litbol, but it's usher to bathe your whole body because of that, or to go to the mikvah, or to pour on tisha kabin. That's usher on Yom Kippur. Even though all year long, normally you go to the mikvah, especially before davening, it doesn't matter. On Yom Kippur, it's aser, and nowadays, a Baal Keri halachas clearly, you don't have to. A Baal Keri does not need to go to the mikvah. If you do it, it's your chumrah, but on Yom Kippur, it's aser of rechitza. Yirbet, b'zman hazeh, aser l'isha litbol b'yom kippurim. Nowadays, women are not allowed to go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur. Filu higia zman tvilata bo bayom. Even if that's her time, then it's still asr. Even though that would be her leil mitzvah, leil tvila, whatever, it would be asr. Even if she just wants to be pure, so that certainly, it's you're allowed to hand things off and etc. It doesn't matter. It's asr on Yom Kippur. Okay, we'll stop here.
It's very interesting how